Alrighty, welcome to Something About Tabletop. I am Master Blah, and today with me is...
The illustrious hobo.
We're just going to be doing a bit of a very light-hearted discussion that may get heavy, I don't know, about organized play and all facets of it, ranging from only be able to use modules and stuff like that, all the way to a community of people that are simply running games. And I guess playing with strangers, kind of thing. That's the big thing about organized play. You play with strangers, so you have a community that's, let's say, that just plays games like the OSG, the Tabletop One Shop group on Facebook, and then you also have, say, the strictness of Pathfinder Society or D&D Adventures, I think it's called. You know, that kind of thing, or Shadowrun Missions.
Yeah, I don't know what they're calling the D&D one now. It used to be called something that I can't remember what it was, but maybe Dragon's Adventures now. I'm not sure.
I think it might just be D&D Adventures. I think.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, we'll look it up though. But I guess we'll break it down into talking about the various different ones that we've done. Do you want to go first, or shall I go first?
You go first.
Alright, so I guess I'll start with one that Hobo hasn't I don't think... Did you ever go to a Pathfinder Society game?
No, I never went to a Pathfinder Society game. I was meaning to, but things happened.
Yeah, of course. Anyway, so this is definitely on the more stricter side of the of the spectrum, I guess. Pretty much, Pathfinder Society, if you don't know what it is created by people who created Pathfinder, Paizo. Marketed quite heavily in their books and stuff like that. It's basically a place for you to go to play games. Pathfinder modules ran by people that aren't necessarily employed by Pathfinder, but I think there are some benefits to being like a venture captain and stuff like that. And there are even free adventures people can play. It's pretty much a way to push product. But either way, I played it and I enjoyed it. Pretty much how it works from the grand spectrum of things is that you make a character and you do missions, and those missions are modules, and you level up your character as you go. And you can play pretty much with anyone in the world with a Pathfinder Society character.
Good question to go into for everyone. What is that? Because I've heard there's level caps on how high characters can get.
Yeah, it's level 11 for Pathfinder Society, and leveling is very different in Pathfinder Society as well. So how leveling works in Pathfinder Society is every mission gives you 1 experience. When you hit 3 experience, you level up. And that's pretty much it, but there's so many clauses and things like that in Pathfinder Society, what books you can use, when you can use them. You have to have proof of the books. They even ask you to bring the books to the table even when you're not necessarily using them. Like if you've taken a single feat from a book, you have to bring that book just in case the DM goes, hey, can I see that book? I mean, it wasn't that strict when I was doing it because we were a fairly small community, I guess, really. They'd only just started out. So they weren't too strict on checking, so most of the time I just used cracked PDFs on my phone, and they never checked if I actually owned them, so all's well that ends well, I guess.
Well, you own like half the books.
I only own three books, I think. 3 books?
It's more than most people, I'll give you that.
You'd be surprised, actually.
PDFs are just convenient, like, for the most part.
Yeah. I usually use PDFs anyway, but I do like to own the book.
But I like to own the books, but I feel like PDFs are just... They're very easy because they don't... like, I like the feel of paper and the physical presence they give you, but PDFs in some cases, it's just like... It's just really easy to then be able to search a page or click, like, the index link on the page.
Yeah. I guess it is, but I don't think we're discussing the clauses between if PDFs are better than real books.
I wasn't planning on getting hugely into that, just making the point.
I guess we could do an episode on that. Anyway, so yeah, I guess the best way to say with Pathfinder Society is I did leave eventually, because the problem for me is that I'm not sure if it was just our group, but roleplay was at a pretty much minimum, because the whole point was that you had to complete a mission, and you had to do that mission, and you only had 3 to 4 hours to do it, and if you were holding it up, you were holding up it for everyone. And there was a lot of new people cycling through, people that didn't understand the game, so you're going to have to constantly use rules, so you're kind of not exactly 100% there for roleplay. But otherwise, it was mainly for a combat grind as well. And I guess another complaint is it was easy. I never had a combat where I was worried for my character's death, ever. It it was made so it was fair and simple, and I think that's what the problem was with Pathfinder Society. Was it was very fair, and I never felt that my character was in danger. Other people have died, sure, when we played, but that's because it's usually surprise criticals with weapons with a 4 times or a 3 times crit, and the DM rolls max damage and just kills someone. Apart from that, it just never happens.
And that sort of thing just happens everywhere. There's not a lot you can really do with. I mean, especially in the lower levels. If there's anyone with like a greatsword, I mean, wasn't there an encounter in Pathfinder Society you were talking about a halfling barbarian with a greatsword and how most people laugh at it, but that counter downs almost like the most amount of people.
Yeah, well, that's actually got something to do with also metagaming and the fact if you're a DM and it actually tells you how to play the characters, and if you don't play them that way and you play them strategic, you can actually kind of kill the entire party pretty easily. But that's a whole nother thing entirely. But I will say the upsides of Pathfinder Society is it's very fair. Everyone has the same thing. All scenarios are generally DM'd the same way, apart from personal touches. And if DMs add anything, it's usually aesthetics, or it's usually they might give a PC an extra personality quirk than they didn't have before. But there's all these clauses, not clauses as in like literal legal stuff, but stuff that you should run it this way, you should run it this way, and generally you kind of have to follow the rules. And this can sometimes take away from playing and GMing, but still, some of the scenarios were written kind of well, and it was still a lot of fun to play, and I got to actually play, which is a rarity for me as well.
Yes, unfortunately, Mr. Master Blah here is usually the forever GM of everything.
Yeah, definitely a forever GM. And also the reason I stopped too is because I just got sick of Pathfinder. I think also D&D 5th was coming out, and I was more interested in that than Pathfinder. And I think a few too many books came out at once, and I was like, fuck this. They're doing a 3.5. They've been doing a 3.5 for a long time, but I only just realized then. Anyway, I mean, that's Pathfinder Society. That's definitely on the more of the stricter side of the spectrum, and because it was created by a company. But I guess now we're going to go to created by fans. And I think we'll segue into the Runner Hub here. And we both entered the Runner Hub, didn't we? We did,
yeah. You were the one who actually let me know about it because of the Arcology podcast, I believe it was, and you were said, like, hey, this seems cool, you want to give it a try?
That's right, yeah, I actually found it. I completely forgot that, but I stopped playing and you continued. Anyway, but I found it by watching the Arcology podcast. I thought that sounds pretty interesting. I've been wanting to play Shadowrun for a while, so I banged up a character and then, searched up there, and we played a few games, and then I started doing more channel-related stuff on the OSG, and you started heavily playing stuff over on Runner Hub. And I guess I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, basically, Runner Hub is a community-run sort of Shadowrun game, bunch of Shadowrun games. Kind of, I've never played missions, so I don't really know too much about missions. This is more of a living campaign world, but it's still organized plays as such, as there are kind of systems and structures set up for vetting processes.
Yeah.
It's fairly sporadic because, for the most part, a lot of it doesn't have the same sort of spread because it's an online thing, and voice is a very important part of what they do. A lot of them prefer people who have voice. They don't really cater to people who just want to use text so much.
Well, that's with all things online, to be honest, and I completely see that. I mean, I myself couldn't really play a text-based roleplay game. I mean, I might fuck around with it for a while. I think I did do some text-based stuff, but seriously, voice or nothing, because it's just fun. It's way more fun to be able to do that kind of fun voice acty kind of thing. But anyway, go on.
I, for about a year and a half, was in... Do you remember that Pathfinder campaign I was in for a year and a half online?
Yeah.
That was all text.
Oh, that was all text? I didn't know that was all text.
Yeah, that was all text. None of that was voice. So, unfortunately, it does... personally, I don't really care. I mean, if people want to do text, I don't think that should discriminate anyone because I think everyone should be included, but I don't think they outwardly exclude it. It's just a case of it's preferred, and when you don't really have a system mandated by a company, that means GMs are just they're gonna just take who they want. That's just it. Like so, if they don't want to take people who can't use voice chat, then they're not gonna.
Well, maybe we should
so.
explain the system a bit of exactly how they got people in the game. So pretty much how Runner Hub worked is you would go there, become a certified GM, which was very easy, and then you post a game. And you would post that game detailing what exactly people you wanted in your game, what slots of archetypes were available, and what you wanted in the game. And then people would post as if they were posting in character to show interest. And then later down the track, maybe after a day or two, you would pick players, and then you would play on a platform that you chose, usually Skype, Roll20, Google Hangouts.
Yeah, it's usually a mixture of Skype with Roll20.
Yeah.
There's always the issue with Shadowrun, which is there are always more players than there are GMs, but for the most part, there's usually at least one or two games a day. It's actually fairly consistent. There's actually a decent amount of games being hosted at almost all times. Real issue is with the European crowd. There are some games, but they're not as regular as, of course, the American time zones. The American time zones, of course, have most of the games. Australians, we don't really get games. We are lucky in that some of the American games or the European games do fall within our time zones, but it's really one of those things where if you want to play, you're going to have to go out of your way to either stay up late or wake up early.
Yeah, it's either really late, like 1, or early in the morning, which is something that I've had to deal with when I'm going on the OSG, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, the Runner Hub also has this whole meta plot thing going on and a contingent story, which is kind of what Pathfinder Society had going on. But they also had a timeline, they had people writing up all this cool meta plot stuff, and it was super interesting, and that's definitely something that kept me reading on the forums even now. I mean, I don't think I've read in the forums for a while now, but I definitely was for a while. And that's something that's a massive plus side. Like that, this is obviously not every single community is going to be like this. And I haven't really heard of D&D communities doing this at all, because Shadowrun is the kind of game, where you can kind of, because your characters live in a city, they can just get called up. And obviously in D&D, you can't just call someone up because it's a fucking city and it's word of mouth.
Yeah, it does have a very interesting dynamic, and it is interesting to have several people who work behind the scenes to, of course, help with your sort of storylines and sort of things like that. It's very it definitely adds to the immersion, and a lot of the posts are well defined with certain tags showing what type of posters, if it's OSC, if it's like news announcements. They had a lot of it was very well defined what the post was and wasn't. And the in-character relations were really good because they also had jackpoint threads, which are just places that essentially just post-by-post roleplay, communicating with each other, that sort of thing. It was they even got an IRC chat later on for. It's an IRC chat dedicated to talking in character, so like a real-time jackpoint almost.
Yeah, that is super cool. That is super cool.
But of course, Runner Hub isn't the only online Shadowrun community. Of course, there are always going to be. This one was rather recent. ShadowNet. It's some of my friends wanted to go a sort of different direction than what the Runner Hub was doing, so we left pretty amicably. I think it's called. No real animosity between the two of us, and we even in our side, even in the sidebar of ShadowNet is a link to Runner Hub.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I left before this kind of thing happened, but I guess this is what happens in most online communities, and especially online communities that play a singular game per se. And when leaders are needed, is sometimes people don't like the leaders. But at least it's good that you guys were able to kind of split. No one hates each other, and I mean, I'm pretty sure you guys still having people playing on the other side, like playing both. I'm assuming that kind of thing happens.
Yeah, we have a system where you can port like your existing characters over, but basically what that is basically if you want to play on both, you have like your hub version and you have your ShadowNet version, and so that way we're trying to make sure that people don't have to choose between the two. We're trying to make sure it all stays very open, and that everyone can sort of so that there are. Well, we're trying to be inclusive, essentially. We're not trying to exclude the hub in any sort of way. We're trying to make sure that everyone can still play games.
Yeah, and I think that's the ultimate thing about these is put a platform up so people can play games and try to make it as fair as possible. And sometimes really holding on to that fairness can cause problems. And also exclusively tying it to one genre can stop the community from getting that big. And then I'm just going to cut over here. Unless do you have anything else to say about the ShadowNet and Runner Hub?
I don't know, not really.
All right, we'll cross over to the OSG, which is something I don't know how long the OSG has been around, or the Tabletop RPG one-shot group. We'll be putting all the relevant links also to this stuff in the description. But anyway, yeah. So pretty much the Tabletop RPG one-shot group was created by, I guess, people from the Brigade group, some of them. I think GM Juice, I think, created it with help of a few other YouTubers. I can't exactly remember, but I know at least the people that are really helping run the place are people like Fontrodden, the old DM, SR2 Joker, DM Juice, Fantastic Dimensions. Look them, they're all great. Check out their channels. But they all helped, or at least have come in and helped to create this community, and everyone helps to create this community. Like, if I didn't mention you, obviously you still helped to create the community, and I even helped to set up Shadowrun in that community. I mean, I haven't been running too many games as of late because, life.
Well, we've been getting really into Fate at the moment. We helped we did introduce Fate, and we did even help promote and introduce people to Fiasco.
Yeah, well, we helped introduce Fiasco. I never introduced Fate. I learned Fate from them. But I did get Fiasco going on there. But mind you, people already knew about it, and they just like, oh, I want to play this. I know this game. I played it once. It was awesome. But not that many Fiasco games go on, because that's barely an RPG. But yeah, Tabletop RPG one-shot group is mainly D&D 5th edition at the moment. But I can tell you right now, you go on there, you ask to join the group, you'll get accepted within 5 to 10 minutes. And pretty much instantly you look in the events tab, there's probably games up, and it doesn't matter if you've never played a game. Most games are catered to new people, or you can go in there and say, hey, who wants to play a game? Who's willing to GM for me? Hey, this system I've never played, I've always wanted to play. Who plays it? And you probably will find someone. Obviously, if you're like a crazy weird system, no one's going to play it. But I mean, there's people like Fontrodden.
Made RPG.
Yeah, Made RPG. Fontrodden runs niche games, and I'll put a link to his channel as well. He's shown me a game called Wild Talents I'm going to be playing. I played Numenera with him, or was going to, stuff like that. He does all those niche games, and you can play those niche games, and he's probably willing to run them. He has pretty much all of them, and there's someone out there for every single game you want to play. And there's how many? There's quite a lot of members. Let me check the members right now, and then I'll let you talk about it a bit. Okay. There are 1,400 members. When I first got into this, there was about 500. The members are not steadily, they're exponentially increasing. It's actually, hitting critical mass at this point. There is always a game, and I'm super excited and pumped about it. As a lot of you probably subscribe to me or know me through the one-shot group. So there's always that.
Yeah, I played a couple of games on the one-shot group. There's a lot of good people on there, and I had a lot of fun, but one-shots really aren't sort of my thing. But yeah, it's definitely good for people who just can't get games in general, or who want a little bit of extra games on top of whatever they're playing in real life. I mean, some people maybe only get to play like once a month or once every 2 weeks, and they just want some games to fill in the spaces in between. And the one-shot group really can do that for you, because again, there are a lot of games for a lot of different types of things, and like you said, there's almost always a game going on. And that's the good part. Like, almost every day there's going to be a game, because we all have problems and addictions to these games we play.
Yeah. You can post game right now, ? In there, and you'll probably get a game. But something to note is it's not just one shots. I thought it was for a while, but you can get campaigns through there. It's a little bit more difficult, but it's good to get your feelers out, play a few one shots, and then eventually get a campaign with people that you enjoy and you like. But you can also get a campaign with random people. I've seen it happen, and they become relatively successful. So that's always something you got to look out for and think about when playing. Definitely one shot group, great place to learn and play all different types of new games. But the downside is there's not so much campaigns, no overly contingent plot between anything. I run a mini meta plot in my Shadowrun games. Monroe. Actually, it's about Gentech and EvoCorp. But other than that, that's organized play. And organized play is different from normal play with your friends around a table. And in my opinion, I still prefer playing with my friends 100% of the time. If I would have had to choose, I'm sorry guys, but I'd choose to play with my friends in real life. What do you think about that, Herbo?
I like the frequency of games I can get online, but I enjoy, I guess, playing with my friends in real life, because in home games, you can cater to your players and your own weird niches, whereas in organized play, you have to stick pretty close to the rules, and it doesn't necessarily allow for a ton of really, I guess, I feel like with organized play in general, it tends to be very, because they're sort of set up missions, it's less roleplay because you still have to focus on the job at hand.
Yeah, I don't get that in the one shot group because the one shot group is different.
No, one-shot
Technically,
group is different.
not even organized play, by the way. It's just a gaming group that has thousands of members. But 1,400. But otherwise, yeah, definitely, that is a big problem. Is I feel that STEM, because I want to complete the mission, because if you let people down, because if you just go, nah, I'm just going to fuck around and play out my character, but what if someone doesn't want to have to deal with your shit? What if multiple people don't want to have to deal with you trying to play out your character? They shut you down. I mean, it can end badly, and it's sad that has to happen sometimes. But, if you walk into a Shadowrun game and your character is a hindrance, people are going to get pissed at you. If you walk into a game of Pathfinder Society and your character is also a hindrance, a lot of the time people aren't going to want to run with you because people get in their head they have to complete the mission. And it's kind of right, because if you fail the mission, most of the time you're not going to get EXP. I mean, you can still get EXP, but you're not going to get your gold, and you hurt everyone, not just yourself.
And it's really, I guess, the real reason is because, unlike in a home game where usually you'll make time, usually when you're playing in some sort of organized play or some online play, GMs and players only have a set amount of time they've got, and once if that's coming up, especially in Shadowrun, it's very easy for Shadowrun to go on very long just in the planning stage, and it leaves very little time for role-playing, or role-playing can really mess up the ratio. It's such a fine thing with Shadowrun where sometimes you'll complete the mission really quickly, much earlier than you expect, and then other times it's like, guys, it's been like an hour, you're still in the meat, or it's been 3 hours, you're still planning. We've only got 2 hours, we've only got 2 hours or an hour left. We've got to get this done.
Yeah, and I guess that's a problem with Shadowrun in general.
But again, I've had the opposite where it's just again, I played about a year and a half online playing in a Pathfinder game, and it was just guys, please stop role playing, otherwise we won't leave this room. We explored at about a room a game, about this sort of speed.
Yeah, that would be excruciating. At that point, I just say my character leaves the room, and I ask the GM what's in the next room. And if the GM's not going to listen, I'm going to be like, can we please move? Because my character is impatient. I mean, I guess that's another thing, is how to deal with players and stuff like that. And you really get to learn that. But you get to meet a lot of people. And I actually think that's the best reason to do organized play, is just to meet more gamers like yourself. And I've met friends through the one shot group. I've met I guess kind of friends through the Runner Hub, but I've definitely met friends through Pathfinder Society, and I really enjoy it. and I would never take back doing it if I mean I didn't really have any negative things happen. It's just I prefer home games, and with less time I wanted to focus on home games. And now that I am, but I want to do semi-regular stuff for the channel as well. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much my views on organized play. Do you want to summarize yours, Hobo?
A lot of it has the potential to be very right, but especially in cases where it's a community sort of managing themselves, because it's not set up by a company or anything like that, it's really hard to... Because a lot of what you see in Shadowrun, and this is true of both the net and the hub, is people spend a lot of time not necessarily moderating what they're doing, but trying to fix the game, I guess. And that can be a kind of problem when it's like, you can either run games or try and fix Shadowrun, and that can really become a problem that sort of drags your community apart, because rules are a very big thing in Shadowrun, and that can easily split people. It can be the same in other systems, but it's not as much.
Shadowrun's a really crunchy system, and I think that's really a problem with Shadowrun, is that characters need to be made a specific way to be good, and there's so many ways that characters can be bad. I mean, multiple times in Runner Hub, because I used to look at people, there was a forum, you used to post your characters, and I saw people posting characters, and basically, I guess, the administration team or the character checking teams just insulting these people for their characters. And it's like, guys, it's for RP. Seriously, like, it's just for roleplay purposes. And no offense, at least for me when I saw in Runner Hub, they weren't that focused on the roleplay. They were focused on getting the mission done. But, some roleplay. But roleplay characters generally were ostracized and not liked. That's at least what I saw.
It's a sort of weird dynamic, because I don't want to say too much, because again, I have friends in both communities, but a lot of it was this sort of, like, people trying to find, a sort of balance between roleplay and effectiveness, but a lot of the time, effectiveness came way before roleplay did, and
Yeah.
it's both bad and good. I was never really a huge fan of Runner Hub's. And I don't mind saying this because it's just character generation. Everyone has their own views on that anyway. But I was never a huge fan of how character gen was really handled on just at least the advice that was given. I was never a big fan of that. Things are different on ShadowNet. We have two fields we check, which is the character illegal? Like, is it illegal? Is it legal by rules in character gen? Yes, then it's basically approved. But then the secondary part is, like, your character's legal, but here's some things you can do to change if you want to improve or optimize a bit.
Anyway, I think we'll wrap it up here and just put a stop to this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it. I'll put all the links to the various different organized plays in the description, and anything else that we might have mentioned YouTube channel-wise. So I am Master Blah.
And I am Hobo. I hope you enjoyed listening, and we'll see you next time.